And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and I am joined by this gentleman who we're going to let him introduce himself in just a second. He and I connect every year, a little late this year on getting together, but we talk about what he's doing at the legislature. So, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. Good morning. It's Buddy Mincey, state rep from Denham Springs in Walker area, District 71.
And we thank you for taking the time today. We know that you're in a hurry. You are dressed to go to the House today. It is Tuesday morning, so you'll be voting on some things, I imagine, later in the day. But usually you're dressed a little more down than you are now. But of course, the dress du jour for the House, if you're going to the floor for the day, you got to have on a coat and tie.
Yeah, if you know me, I'm not a coat and tie guy, but we do have a decorum that we're obligated to do, and we're in session, so I'll be leaving session shortly.
So, plenty to talk about today. You've got quite a few bills. We're going to try to scoot through them as quickly as possible. Do want to talk real brief, 30 seconds. It's a fiscal session for Louisiana. Those are typically heavy years. Lots of bills, lots of people talking about the money. How have you felt about the session so far? Y'all have been doing it now about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, it's different. Every session for us has been different, and I guess that we don't have any norms anymore. But it is a fiscal session, so some of the limitations that puts on us is that we can only file 5 general bills, and that really puts a limitation on you when you have a lot of needs in your area. And another thing is this session is compounded by the fact that this is the last year before your term, and you got a lot of people who are leaving, and they've got legacies they're trying to set. And then it's campaign season, so that complicates it as well. So the dynamics are different. We know we're going to have a new leadership and legislators next year, and as well as having a new governor. So it makes it pretty interesting. The dynamics is pretty interesting.
Right, and it is an interesting year. Lots coming up in the fall, and we'll talk about that after we get through your bills. But plenty to discuss there. Let's start with we're going to go in numerical order for the bills that you have in the House, and we're going to start with HB 231, which is Louisiana Veterans Cemetery. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Carlos Strickland is actually he's a resident of Livingston Parish, lives in Walker, and he reached out to me, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we have some limitations on who can be buried in our cemeteries right now. And this bill it just allows the Veterans Affairs Department to promulgate rules for them to take in a new classification, if you will, of our veterans. And for instance, if you were in the National Guard or the Armed, you cannot be buried in one of our cemeteries right now because of the restrictions. And so there's a whole class of additional veterans that will enable us to be buried in our cemeteries, and we deserve. Our veterans deserve everything we can do to honor them. And so the Veterans Affairs asked me to do this, and this is that bill.
And how is that? Usually we just sort of talk about it, but kind of want to get a brief update on where that stands.
Yeah, normally, we talk about the bills I'm running before session starts. This one's a little bit different. We're in the middle of it, and we're halfway through it, and a lot of these have progressed for me already. This is the Veterans Affairs bill has actually been passed through the House yesterday, and it's going to the Senate. So, of course, it's a very highly supported. Don't see any opposition, so it's going well.
Very good. Moving on to HB 397, this is a Homeland Security bill. You kind of worked in tandem, I believe, with Sheriff Jason Ard on some of this. It's about disaster response. So give us a little bit of background and then tell us how you came up with the bill.
Yeah, I've seen our parish respond firsthand to emergencies for a long time. My dad was a parish councilman for 16 years. I was a school board member for 13. We had the flood in 16 we had to deal with. Of course, Hurricane Ida and all the storms that we've had since I've been a legislator. And, you're always looking for opportunities to be able to respond better. And this is something that the sheriff came and asked me about. And all it does, there's been a lot of misinformation about this bill, but the only thing this bill allows, would allow would be for the sheriff to be able to have dual authority to make entries into the Web EOC. It doesn't change any other authority. He wasn't requesting any other authority change. It doesn't, the declaration of emergency still resides within the parish president. But all this bill would do would allow our sheriff to be able to enter a request into EOC, the Web EOC. And, he's already working in that capacity. We have some sheriffs around the parish that are doing this for the entire parish. So it's nothing really new. It's just, in my opinion, it was an opportunity for us to be better responsive and a bit better responding in storms and hurricanes and emergencies. And, when the sheriff asked, of course, I met with police chiefs, fire chiefs, municipalities, and the consensus was that this was a positive.
And that web AOC portal is a lot of it is putting in, I guess you can say, the things that you've done and that sort of thing, or whatever entity has done them, but also requesting supplies and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a two-way street. And
Correct.
with FEMA and the federal government being more in the reimbursement business these days instead of upfront funding, I imagine that it would have been easier to get money out of them and get reimbursed for the things you did during emergency, having access to that EOC, correct?
Yeah, and look, I think our sheriff is probably, I mean, they're responsible for the whole parish, and I think they're as ingrained in our emergency response in all capacities as anyone. And having them have the authority to be able to request a rescue, for instance, or water or whatever it may be, I don't think it's unreasonable to have them have that authority. And in a lot of ways, they're already working in that capacity. Our sheriff does works a lot with the Sheriff's Association. We have some municipalities and first responders in our parish right now that contact the sheriff first for these types of requests. So it made sense, and it made us to where we can respond better.
So moving on to HB 406, and but for those of you who don't know, there's HB, which is House bill, and SB, which is Senate bill. Obviously, you being a House rep, your bill introductions are House bills. This is about the I-12 corridor and flood mitigation. Does this have anything to do with the wall?
It is the wall.
Okay.
So just go back a little bit and refresh history. We know that I-12 wall compounded the flooding on the north side of Denham Springs and Walker, and it was significant. And when I became a state legislator, I've been working on this ever since. In 2020, I started conversations with DOTD trying to resolve that issue. I first went to them and said, "Hey, I'm gonna fix that wall, and I'm gonna give you a choice." Secretary Wilson, I said, "You can do A, B, or C. You tell me which one you want to do." And they asked me, said, "Buddy," he said, "please don't make us do that because we don't know what the solution is." Now, this is 4 or 5 years after the flood, and we haven't even looked at what the solution would be to that barrier. And so, of course, there's a litigation in place. There's some lawsuits that's been filed because of it, so that complicates it a little bit. But we still need to find a solution. A lot of people say that what happened to us in 2016 will never happen again. Well, if you remember, it wasn't long after that, 4 or 5 months later, we had that a big event in Houston, 4 hours away, 4.5 hours away. They dropped 45 inches. So that thing would have drifted back. We'd have had a repeat within 6 months. So it's a threat. A lot of our residents have PTSD because of that flood, especially if you're on the north side and you walk out your door in Walker subdivisions. You walk out the door and you look in the barrier is eye level, and you know that barrier was filled up to the storm. So at any rate, in 2021, DOTD agreed to work with me in good faith and to find a solution. So I gave them 2 years to give us a solution, and they gave us a report at the first of this year. And the report was the solutions that they gave me. They assured me they would be viable solutions, and they would make every attempt to give me something that we could do. And then we was going to go after funding to try to fix it. And the report was insulting to me as a legislator. Their solution was to build an elevated structure for 30 miles at the price tag of $10 billion. They suggested tearing down the interstate to grade and starting over. They suggested removing the barrier completely and having that opposing traffic with no barrier. And then they also, one thing they suggested was tearing down the whole thing and starting all over. So, the report, I was assured that they would give me some viable solutions, and that was far from the case. So now, 3 years later, I'm back to square one. So, I've taken that, I filed a bill that says, "Hey, tell us what the solution is and tell us how much it's going to cost." So then as a legislator, I can go after some capital outlay or, some other funding to try to get it resolved.
Gotcha. So we'll see what kind of how is that bill doing?
So that bill has gone through the House, it's passed through the Senate committee, it's going to the Senate floor, and we're very hopeful for it. It should be okay.
Okay. Well, moving on, getting into well, I know we said we're going in chronological order, but we'll go ahead and talk about it because I know you have a couple of teacher slash education bills. The first one is HB 472. This is about the Teacher Mobility Compact, which I believe is trying to be able to recruit teachers from other states, correct?
Well, what it is, it is an agreement. A compact has to be signed by 10 states, and they all agree to the same certification requirements, and that type of thing, background checks, and so forth. And whenever you enter the compact and you meet those requirements, then you're basically the reciprocity from teachers moving from state to state. It's basically seamless. This bill was brought to us by the Department of National Defense. Our armed forces, their families move around, and some of their families are teachers, and so they're moving from other states, coming over here, being stationed here in our state, and they're having difficulties with their certification. So this is our armed forces asked for this, and it just it's good sense, it's good common sense. Just move some bureaucracy out of the way. We need teachers, and this is just an opportunity for us to have that agreement.
Gotcha. Okay, so moving on to House Bill 514. There's a lot going on here. This is with regard to property taxes that people in Ascension, Livingston, EBR, and I believe parts of East Feliciana.
No, just
those 3. Okay. Have been paying into the Amite River Basin Commission. It currently generates roughly $9.5 million a year that's locked up. So there was some things you wanted to do potentially. You wanted to offer the ARBC, which is the Amite River Basin Commission, if you're keeping up, a chance to use those funds in different areas since so much federal and state funding had come into the Comite Diversion Canal. So tell us where you got the idea from and how the bill's doing.
So the Amite River Basin Commission, it's been in the basin was statutorily set up in 1981. So we have such a history of flooding in the Amite River area. They set up this basin commission and basically empowered it to be over 7 parishes. There are 7 parishes that are included. And statutorily, they were given some authority, probably as much as anyone has. And the problem is they've focused on one project, the Comite diversion. It's the Amite River Basin's one-hit wonder. It's the only thing that they've been able to produce, and it's a great project. We're looking forward to it. As you mentioned, it primarily benefits East Baton Rouge. For Livingston Parish, it benefits a small area. But what they did was they created the Amite River Basin Impact Area. It's the area that's most, or the Comite Diversion Impact Area. It's the area that's going to be most impacted by the diversion. And they passed a property tax to help generate matching funds. So in 2000 was the first year they had a 10-year property tax. In 2010, they had another 10-year property tax. So they've collected 20 years of property taxes specifically for matching funds. It was the matching funds for a federal project. And it has $9.5 million in there totally right now. It's not a per year, but that's what's in the funds, and it's restricted. You can't do anything with it. It's for matching funds. Well, Congressman Graves got the Comite diversion federally funded, 100%, no matching funds required. So in the last 3 years, I've been very active in trying to figure out the best infrastructure flood protection that we can do, and that is through the Amite River Basin Commission, and trying to find out funding for them. So we generated $8 million last year in surplus for them to do some master planning, and we looked at every opportunity for money for them to do projects, and we got $9.5 million that's sitting there that nothing can be done with it. So my bill, another bill, there's a lot of misinformation out there on it, but this bill only allowed the Amite River Basin, by a vote of the people, to go to the people and go back and do other projects in that basin. Which could potentially include the Comite itself. There's a concern that this funding might be needed for the completion of the project. It's about $500 million, less than 500, but it's 400 and something, 70 or so million over budget right now. So the concern was that we needed that money for that. That's a drop in the bucket. But we've been assured by our congressional delegation that it is going to be funded through the federal government. They're looking for the pot that they're going to get it from, but there's no matching requirement. So this gave us an opportunity to generate additional projects in the COVID impact area, and by a vote of the people. Had to go through the vote of the people. I received a pretty good bit of opposition from this, and most of the opposition come from the East Baton Rouge. So East Baton Rouge, contractually, they're responsible for the maintenance for the co-meet diversion. They're obligated to take care of that money. They eyed this $9.5 million and wanted to use it for operational expense for maintenance costs. And then I think the Amite River Basin, they actually wanted to take this money and use it for operational costs, pay salaries and different things like that. And my focus was on projects. And when a lot of people, when I first presented the bill, they opposed it because it wasn't the original intent of the money. And so I came back, I amended the bill, and basically we said that once the co-meet was completed, that we would refund this money to the taxpayers that paid for it. And I thought that was another fair approach. We're going to do projects first. That didn't work, so then we're going to refund the money. And I ran that actually failed. I had some opposition, but East Baton Rouge was a primary focus behind that. And they want the money. It's a money grab. It's a money grab by different ones, and I'm trying to do what I think is best for Livingston Parish.
Sure. So as I understand it, that bill for this year is no more, or is dead.
It's still on the calendar, but I'm still waiting to see if I'm going to do anything else with it.
Gotcha. Moving on to HB 637. This one was interesting. You're looking to try to, I believe, generate private investment into education by providing tax credits for businesses that invest in school programs.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of programs were you thinking?
So there's no.
This is HB 637, by the way.
Yes. So I'm very proud of our school system. I'm extremely proud of the career technical education opportunities that we have. College-bound students is as important as career-bound students, and we do a great job in our parish of giving those opportunities. I have a lot of tours that come here and see the great things that we're doing. I bring them to Walker High School, and consequently, we created a CTE, Career Technical Education Task Force. How do we duplicate some of the successes that we have here in Livingston Parish across the state? And part of that is investment. We're in a community where we have a lot of opportunities. We can generate investments from businesses, but not every community across the state has that. So there's a limitation, and we wanted to generate an incentive for business to make investment into these programs. While we were having those conversations, the Baton Rouge area chamber reached out to me, and they actually wanted to extend this for internships. They wanted to be able to give a tax credit for companies who invest in internships and high demand, high wages positions. And so that's the direction we went off in, working with the Amite River or the Baton Rouge area chamber. We started putting this together. The problem is right now, currently in the state, it may shock you to know that we give away $7.5 billion in tax credits and rebates. $7.5 billion. This year alone, we had one day, it was our tax credit day, we had requests from around the state. We had $1 billion in tax credits requested from us in one day at the state capitol this year. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee, and it come through our committee. So, we have our tax system is complicated. It's complicated because of our taxing structure, but it's also complicated because we take in so much money and we give it back in credits. We need to simplify all those things. So this year, we as a committee, we've pretty much have tried to just stay away from giving the credits anymore, and we backed off. It's a fiscal year. All the fiscal bills come through us. 2 years ago, we had a tax reform that we put in place. We really don't know what the effects of that until this year's tax season's through, and we can actually see what that looks like. So tax reform this year has been a little stalled because we're trying to see what the impacts are from 2 years ago. But this tax credit bill, this is something that I'm probably going to put aside, probably do a resolution and try to work towards some more guardrails for something that we can present potentially in the future.
And sometimes you've got to put a bill together and put it out there before some people who you never knew would be interested pop up and say, wait, this is a problem. And
Right.
It's like, oh, okay. So it happens from time to time, but
Yep.
Moving in the right direction. So talking about, you brought up resolutions. You've got 4 on the table this year. Let's run through those real quick as we wrap up, because I know we got to get you up to the legislature to do your job during this time of the year. So, House Concurrent Resolution 9. This is another Veterans Affairs.
Mhm.
Well, this one's not a bill; it's a resolution. Um, it's regarding a Purple Heart Trail around the Capitol. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, again, we talked about our veterans earlier, and look, I think we have to do everything we can to honor our veterans in every capacity. This year, I was a part of Denham Springs becoming the sixth Purple Heart city in the state. Walker became the seventh. If you remember, our cadets, our ROTC cadets from both campuses, were able to put that together, and the VA has asked me to designate a Purple Heart Trail at the Capitol. And this is at their request, but this will be a House concurrent resolution. A concurrent resolution goes to the Senate as well. Just a House resolution stays in the House, but this is a resolution to enable that.
A worthy cause, I
Yep,
believe.
absolutely.
Another concurrent resolution that you have on the books, which is House Concurrent Resolution 17. That last one was 9, if I didn't mention it. This continues the task force that you and I have discussed several years in a row.
Correct.
It's called the Teacher Recruitment, Recovery, and Retention Task Force. Obviously, looking at a lot of ways to try to train, recruit, and retain teachers. That's the name. So tell us a little bit about what this resolution is about.
I don't think it's any secret to anyone around the state that we're in a crisis right now with our teacher workforce. And, we formed this task force several years ago with trying to identify reasons for that decline in our workforce and try to implement changes to offset that or to circumvent that or to prevent it. And for 2 years, Dr. Kim Hunter Reed, the Commissioner of Higher Ed, has chaired it, co-chaired it, and staffed that commission, that task force. And we've done some phenomenal work for 2 years, so much that they've asked for us to extend it for 2 more years. So this is just an extension of something that's been working very well for us.
Okay. So, and of course, those were both concurrent resolutions. This is just a House resolution. This is number 85, and this is about the basically Maurepas Swamp protection area or the management area, not protection area. So, tell us a little bit about where you're looking to go with this.
Yeah, if you know me, I'm not a coat and tie guy, but you also know that I'm an avid outdoorsman. I love to hunt. I've been running deer with dogs all of my life. It's such a rich tradition and a rich culture in Louisiana. In 2001, the state began acquiring the what is now called the Maurepas Swamp Wildlife Management Area. This was areas that had been traditionally run with dog hunting. It's very swampy, very a lot lakes and so forth. And when the state acquired the land, they basically cut out dog hunting in that area. And I think that started in 2001. So we've had, you had an area that had a rich tradition of a hunting method that was removed. And the management area is about 122,000 acres. So I've met with Wildlife and Fisheries. We're working with them, and we've asked them to propose regulations and guidelines and suggestions for reintroducing that method of hunting into the management area. We've identified an area of about 9,700 acres, so it's about 8.6% of the total management area. And as a state, I think we need to do everything we can to create as many hunting opportunities as we can. As a legislator, I believe in utilizing our natural resources to the best of our ability. And as a hunter, of course, I believe in the traditions and the cultures that I've been blessed to experience. So for me, this is just an opportunity to do all three. And we're going to ask Wildlife and Fisheries to put a plan together and present it back to us. Then we'll see where it goes from there.
Gotcha. So, be interesting to see. Like you said, it's only about 8.6%. So, and something that used to be done avidly
That's
in
right.
that area.
Absolutely.
So last but certainly not least, as we wrap the show up, HR 128 or House Resolution 128, I believe you testified on this yesterday. This is about trying to find a better solution for the traffic in front of Live Oak High School on Highway 16 in the morning and the afternoon, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, so I was a school board member 10 years ago. Whenever the Live Oak High School, the new facility was completed, and it's a great campus. Live Oak High School is it's a gem in our state. It's a gem. It's probably one of our higher performing schools in our parish. They do a phenomenal job. Livingston Parish, the economic engine of our school of our parish is our school system, and we have we're growing because of that. So the traffic up there since that school was constructed has been horrendous on the 16, as you know. And I remember when Senator Erdy and at the time Representative Pope put in some capital outlay for some turning lanes. So they did the turning lanes when they constructed the campus. But we still have a significant issue right there at 1019 or Old Highway 16 at the red light. It necks down from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And then, the congestion is horrible going past the high school. So, I've been working with DOTD. They have no opposition to the resolution. I've asked them to study that area from 1019 to up to 4 Road, which is, I think, Highway 1022. It's about a 2.4-mile stretch. And I've asked them to give us some suggestions on how we can alleviate that traffic congestion. For me, the natural thing is an extension of the 4-lane highway past that point. But we're going to let DOT give us that. And look, I've been extremely engaged and active in capital outlay in my district. We've got more capital outlay going on right now than we probably have ever had. Working with Senator Pope and working with Speaker Shake Snyder, as well as Senator Erdy in the past, the foundations, some of the work that he had done. We've got a lot of great things going on, but we've got a tremendous amount of need. Our infrastructure is 20 to 30 years behind. I've been focused in my district, the District 71, but I've also heard since that campus was constructed on the issues that they've had, and I've been asked by some residents to try to do something about it. And this is the first step to try to get a plan together, get DOTD to tell us what the plan is, and then the next step for me would be the next year would be to try to go after some capital outlay.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for running us through your bills and your resolutions that you have up this year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as we discussed, we got to get you up there. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you'll introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Buddy Mincey Jr., State Representative from District 71, which is primarily Alabama Springs and the city limits of Walker.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there for joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. It's $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. One last time, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.